Hi there and welcome to a Let's Type episode from the Commodore 64 Appreciation Society. This is a series where I reach back into the past and type out a program from an old computer magazine. And then when I finish typing it in, I play it. Today, our time machine is set for September 1989. Aerosmith's Pump was dominating rock radio and reminding us that elevators aren't just for moving between floors. In theaters, Jean-Claude Van Damme continued his completely justified pursuit of an Oscar with Kickboxer. And on TV, Doogie Howser MD was reminding us that age is just a number. But with all due respect, Doogie, I'm sticking with my actual adult doctor. Meanwhile, technology was moving fast. Intel rolled out the 486 processor, the Game Boy was flying off shelves and quietly ruining productivity everywhere thanks to Tetris. And games like Populous were showing us that sandboxes weren't just for kids anymore. And yet somehow, during all this progress, our favorite 7-year-old machine just kept going. The Commodore 64 was still incredibly popular, with around 12 million units out there by this point. New games kept coming, and magazines like Compute's Gazette were right there alongside it with articles, reviews, and of course, type-ins. The September 1989 issue was no exception, packed with content and 9 type-in programs. And one of them, Wham Ball, a full pinball game written entirely in machine language. And honestly, for a type-in, this looks way more ambitious than it has any right to be. Let's get typing. This type-in was recommended by a viewer, Tony. Thanks, Tony. And just a reminder that if you have any games you'd like to see covered, definitely let me know in the comments or on our Discord. Wham Ball was written by Rick Bauer, and its build is a pinball game with 26 screens, 32 speeds, and up to 40 randomly placed targets called whammies per screen. That's some pretty ambitious stuff. And judging by the screenshot, it's also pretty inventive. There are 6 flippers at the bottom of the screen, along with a whole mess of obstacles. It looks like part pinball, part target practice. The only catch? It's written entirely in machine language, which is a lot less fun to type in than a basic program. But hey, that's okay. I've got Compute's MLX editor to help me out, and I'm ready to enter a nice, peaceful Zen state. I'm figuring this will take about an hour to type in, and I'm really hopeful for a great ending. My setup here would absolutely wow 18-year-old me. It's been almost 40 years since this program was published. I'm typing it out at my brand new Commodore 64 Ultimate while recording video on a computer that is roughly 200,000 times more powerful, give or take. And even crazier, I'm using an iPad to display the magazine text, and the iPad is also over 150,000 times more powerful. So I'm basically using 2 supercomputers to help me type out a program on a brand new 1 megahertz machine. Yeah, 18-year-old me would get a huge kick out of this. The editorial in this issue of the Gazette is easily one of the most fascinating ones I've ever read, and it hints at an alternate future that never was. Computing was at a crossroads in 1989. Powerful, affordable consoles like the NES and Sega Master System were taking over as game machines. And meanwhile, the high end of the computing market was clearly moving towards IBM compatibles. Commodore was stuck in the middle. The 64 was still generating significant revenue, but it was showing its age, and developers were starting to move on. The Commodore Amiga line had plenty of power, but it was often seen as an expensive gaming or creative machine, not a serious all-purpose computer. Rumors at the time, and this is what the editorial dives into, suggested that Commodore had another machine waiting in the wings. Called the 64 GS, it was said to be a 16-bit, 4 MHz system with 128K of RAM. And more importantly, it would have been fully backward compatible with the 64 and priced at around $350. According to the magazine, Commodore's sales and marketing team wanted a machine like this in the worst way. They saw it as a way to extend the 64's massive success and maybe even hold the line against consoles. Engineering, however, wanted nothing to do with it. Internally, it was dismissed as the son of Commodore Plus 4, a reference to one of Commodore's biggest missteps. We all know how it played out. Commodore never released a machine like the 64 GS. Instead, they kept the 64 alive at the low end, while trying to position the Amiga against IBM compatibles at the high end. In the end, neither strategy really worked. And it's hard not to wonder what might have happened had they taken a different path. A cheap, backwards compatible 16-bit upgrade to the 64? Yeah, I would have been first in line. And almost as an exclamation point to the editorial, the very first article in this issue illustrates the problem Commodore was facing. In their Commodore Clips feature, Compute's Gazette highlights an impressive list of games coming to the 64. Many of them showcased at the 1989 Consumer Electronics Show just weeks earlier. Games like John Madden Football, Afterburner, and Gauntlet 2 were all making their way to the system. Big publishers like Electronic Arts, Capcom, and Mindscape were still supporting the 64. This was great, right? Well, not so fast. Just a few years earlier, the Commodore 64 was leading the way with new releases like these. But by 1989, things had changed. These weren't original titles built for the system. They were ports from far more powerful machines. And those versions? Yeah, they were compromises. A game like Afterburner on the 64 would be nothing like what you'd play in the arcade. These weren't groundbreaking releases, and they weren't going to move hardware the way earlier titles had. They existed because the audience was still there, not because the platform was leading the charge. And that mindset is exactly what kept Commodore stuck in the position they were in. Well, those last sections were downers, weren't they? But that's all good. It's just history. I sure didn't care about how Commodore's business was doing, and I was still using my 64 a ton in 1989. I was connecting with others on BBSs, some of which were even starting to pull in Usenet feeds from this thing called the internet. And I was downloading demos, SID tunes, and playing amazing role-playing games like Heroes of the Lance and Hillsfar. So life was good. And meanwhile, the typing for our fancy new pinball game, Wham Ball, is coming along just fine. I've run into a few problems here and there, but overall it's gone really well. And of course I goof up on the last line. And done. We'll just save that. And there we go. It uses 15 blocks on disk, which puts it just under 4K in total. But remember that machine code is extremely compact, so this would probably be 3 to 5 times larger if written in BASIC. Alright, I'm excited. Let's see what we've got. Nice! Gotta love a game that doesn't mess around. It just kicks right in. Okay, the Commodore key is for the left flippers, and the right cursor key moves the right. Return releases the ball, and away we go. Oh, interesting. I guess there isn't any randomness in how the ball moves, so you can get stuck in a loop like this. No problem though, I'll just change the angle of the flipper. And yeah, there it goes in another direction. And yeah, right down the middle. Cool, that little flashing target raised a center bumper. That'll make things easier. Overall, the ball physics feel pretty realistic, and the default speed is quite good as well. Obviously, getting that middle bumper quickly really makes a difference. It's tough to control the ball precisely, but it seems like a good idea to head towards it right away. Only 2 more, come on baby. Oh nice, level cleared. I really like that movement effect on the barriers. They only animate when the ball touches them. Very cool. Wham Ball has all the prerequisites for a good arcade game. Bright colors, fast action, lots of animations, and fun sound effects. And that ominous droning sound in the background, nice touch. Alright, down to one last target. Come on. Of course. What a slick game. Man, type-ins had really come a long way by 1989. You definitely wouldn't find something like this 4 or 5 years earlier. Let's play around with a few of the options. F7 and F8 allow us to change the levels, and there is a lot of variety here. They obviously all follow a pretty simple formula, but the range is really impressive, and some of them, check out levels W, Y, and Z, will be really tough to finish. Okay, let's try another game. The description says that the number of whammies, that's what they call the targets, are random on each level, up to 40. And this looks like we're close to that. Nice, cleared. And check out the line of whammies at the top of the screen. I'd say that's 40, which is great because you get bonus points for each after you clear the level. Next up, we can adjust the speed using F3 and F4. Let's just crank that up a bit. Oh, cool. It still runs really smoothly. Personally, I think the default speed is fine, but being able to control the speed is a terrific option. Oh, well this is cool. Pressing the run stop key jostles the table around, and you can use it to slightly shift the ball's direction. I like that little shifting effect as well. It's a good move to execute if your ball is stuck in a loop or if you're about to lose one. But just like on a real pinball table, you can't do it too much or bad things happen. Like here. When you tilt the machine, you lose control of the ball for 15 seconds and the middle flippers disappear. So basically, you're left watching while the ball bounces to its doom. What a great game. This is definitely one of the fastest, most polished games I've ever played from a type-in, and it really shows how far they had come by 1989. With just a bit more polish, this could have been a pretty successful commercial game. And really, there are only a few changes I'd be interested in making. The most obvious is a high scoreboard. Arcade-style games like this absolutely need high scores. What's the point of having a great game if you can't rub your buddy's face in it? Aside from that, I think having a few angled barriers would be good for adding some variability to how the ball moves, and having an option to turn off the background music would also be nice. It's atmospheric for sure, but it does get a bit monotonous. But these really aren't complaints. It's truly a fun game, and I definitely recommend giving it a try. I've posted it on our Discord if you're interested. The link's in the description. Thanks again to Tony for the recommendation. Congrats to Rick Bauer for writing such a great game almost 40 years ago. And as always, great job to Compute for publishing it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. And if you have any memories of Wham Ball, ideas for making it better, or if you have any type-in recommendations of your own, drop them in the comments. Hope to see you again.